I was willing to be knocked down through my whole life over and over again because I knew that was the way I was going to be shaped into the player I am today and the person I want to become. So I don't think without the hard parts of basketball and life, I would ever be in a position that I am today. Like I never thought I could have some of the things I have because I didn't, I didn't go through anything. I wouldn't have been that player. If I didn't work for it, I didn't have setbacks, I wouldn't be here today.
On an individual level, what are some strategies that you use to fit into a new playing group?
For anyone that is going to try and experience it in a new state, a new team, it's about going in, not trying to force your way in, but just assessing the situation, having some emotional intelligence to say, how can I create some new friendships, some new bonds, create good chemistry, and then you start to implement your game and some conversations and some feedback. When they feel that you actually care and you're there just to listen, they'll start asking questions. And then you slowly start to fit in. Then you go on court, you play hard, you work, you do everything. You try and give them a little bit of feedback and you try and absorb the feedback as well. It has to be a two-way street. And that's, I think, the best way to acclimate into a new situation with teammates, especially for me this year.
I want to just talk a little bit on your experience in the NBA, which must have been an absolute dream for you. But you also, at the time, had to leave behind or put on pause a successful career in the NBL. Can you talk on any mentors that you've been able to turn to throughout your career and your development about, big decisions and big conversations like that?
Yeah, I think it started with my mum and dad when I went to the Institute of Sport when I was 16, 17. It was a big decision that I had to make. I said no the first time, and then about 6 months later, they ended up kind of pushing me out the door a little bit and saying, if you don't like it, come home. But if you don't go, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And I remember just thinking, that's a great way for me to approach an opportunity. And opportunities only come from hard work and consistency. And over the course of time, just being a pretty genuine person. So when I went to the NBA, it was tough. Like I gave up a pretty good role coming back to Adelaide, but I ended up saying, you know what, if I make it, great. If I don't, it's okay. I gave it a crack. And there was a very, very, very small amount that truly believed in me and thought I could do it. I was one of them, which was, the biggest point of everything. So it's nice when you believe in yourself sometimes, but then after a while, you haven't made it. You're trying to get 10 days. You're trying to break in. You haven't got there yet. That's where it's hard to kind of consistently say to yourself, I'm good enough. I deserve this. And it's just about patience, persistence. Those are the two things that if you do the hard work, you are precise with your workouts and you're a good person and you genuinely care about the team and you have patience and persistence. There's a lot of things there, but there's only really three, and the others are just time.
Stepping onto the court, you had those free throws to shoot. How did you kind of handle those nerves?
The scenario, if you haven't heard it, is Rondé Hollis-Jefferson drove in, got fouled on a play. It was my first night. Coach had said to me, don't worry about even warming up, really. Just take it all in. Just enjoy this. You're an NBA player now. You're not going to play tonight. We'll suit you up in 2 days against Boston. Rondé gets hurt on a free throw, and the rule is the opposing team picks the player to shoot the free throws, and he picked me. And then I went up. My first one, I didn't think at all it was going to go in. I didn't think both were going to go in. I was that nervous. You're holding the ball. It feels like a watermelon, not a basketball. You're shaking. I tried to bend my knees and my hands, and I couldn't really feel anything. I clanked the first one. It was nerve-wracking. You make the second one. You run back thinking, how good's this? Like, I'm going to play heaps. And then the coach just, come on over here, mate. Sit back down. Like, this is where you sit in the rest of the night. And everyone has a laugh and takes a bit of a gag from that. But, that for me was my first ever taste of the NBA. And, to know that I officially scored a point in the NBA, that by itself would have been more than enough, from a Horsham kid.
What about guarding those superstars you were listing off before?
You look at them walk past and you think, far out, that's Giannis. Like, that's pretty cool. He's warming up. And then you look back and you watch him a bit more and you see flaws in a game that, there's not a lot. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Giannis is a flawed player. He's a stud beyond all studs. I remember the coach had said, hey, don't let him dunk. Like, that's it. Don't let him get in the paint. Don't let him dunk. First 2 plays of the game, he dunked twice.
Yeah.
Timeout, 50 seconds into the game, and we all got rinsed. And I'm sitting on the bench, and about 5 minutes later, they put me in and they said, "Hey, you're guarding Giannis." And I was like, far out. Like, this is a bit of a shock. And you just go into playing basketball. Like, I back myself against most people, and I'm happy to get my ass kicked time and time again and walk out of there with my head held high saying I gave it everything I did, but I learned something from it.
Throughout your career, like in Australia and overseas as well, you've had plenty of clutch moments. But how do you kind of have that confidence to go onto the court every night and say, look, I'm ready for this, and I'm going to perform at a high level throughout the whole season consistently?
I think it's just about stacking the days slowly and consistently and saying, I'm just going to just chip away. And every day I'm just going to add a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And that's all we can do as basketballers. It's not about doing 6 hours of work today and then thinking we're going to be the best shooters tomorrow. It's about just doing a little bit each day. And then over the course of time, we give ourselves a chance to, have a chance to be successful or make some plays because you can trust in your abilities. So with consistent repetition and just stacking the days, I think it gives us the chance to be successful.
You're a huge advocate about mental health. So we'll touch on this quickly. You're all about, opening the conversation and engaging in those conversations, embracing the emotions. When you think back on your career so far, what do you think has been fundamental for you personally to manage the highs and lows of professional sport?
I think for a lot of people, we tend to forget memories of when we were a child with our families. And I try and think of in high pressure situations or at moments of where I'm really struggling mentally. I try and think back to moments when I was a teenager, a kid, with my sisters, with my mum and dad, with my best friends. That's where I try and go back to, because those were times where the world wasn't really the world. It was just a playground.
Yeah.
And I try and think of life as, okay, whatever it is in front of me right now, cliche again, it's like, it'll pass. So for me, I really, really urge people to have a conversation and trust that whoever it is in your life that you feel like you maybe can't speak to, you can speak to them. When you're saying you're not okay, it's not about, look at me, I need attention. It's just saying that, you know what, I don't feel great in this moment and I'm not sure why, and I just need someone to talk to. For me, when I'm struggling, I tell my family, I tell my loved ones, I tell my partner, and I have honest conversations. I break down crying all the time. There was a couple of days ago, I was crying. I spoke about what was going on. I had honest conversation. I spoke to my loved ones. And then you kind of navigate through it. And then you focus on the days, what it is, setting your goals, having a routine. What am I trying to tick off? Those are the things where I try and get back to pretty quickly now. As much as sometimes people don't feel like they're loved and necessary in this world, you are, and you are needed, and you are loved. And whether the people don't voice it enough, that's another thing we have to try and do, is tell those around us we love them. And I think that's the kind of conversations we need to start having.